Thanks for joining me again on the nature of mental health. We are continuing our Nature and Recovery series with a personal experience of using nature to support and maintain sobriety. Today's guest is Grant Morris from New Sky Productions. With nearly 20 years in the creative services and journalism industry, Grant is a seasoned creative problem solver specializing in communicating difficult topics in interesting ways. His work is recognized internationally in publications and by corporations seeking outside-the-box solutions to day-to-day problems. Since 2023, he has been writing and producing a film called The Wake that outlines his own story following the sudden death of his only brother Max from fentanyl poisoning, and the role that the outdoors, specifically fly fishing, plays as he learns to live again. Currently in recovery himself, Grant says, "We're making this film to remember the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have lost their lives to the opioid crisis, the millions left behind, forced to learn to live again in the wake of tragic loss, and the healing power found in nature, fly fishing, and saying yes to life." Grant and I met last year through the nonprofit I belong to called Reeling in Serenity. Reeling in Serenity provides free fly fishing retreats across the country for those in active recovery from substance use disorders. The mission of the organization is to support women and men in active recovery by connecting them to each other and nature through the therapeutic sport of fly fishing. Grant's story was so powerful I just had to have him on the show. And he's a really nice guy to boot. So get ready for this moving episode as we talk with Grant Morris from New Sky Productions. Welcome to The Nature of Mental Health, the podcast where we explore how time outdoors supports emotional well-being, resilience, and healing. I'm your host, Will Henry, clinical social worker, nature-informed therapist, and founder of Riverstone Mental Health Collective. Join me as we dive into practical tools, meaningful conversations, and inspiring stories that help us reconnect with the natural world and ourselves. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Thanks so much for joining me today, Grant. I'm really excited to talk about the project you've got going on and how nature has helped you on your healing journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity here in the beginning to kind of pass the mic off and let you talk about yourself a little bit and the project you're working on.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm Grant Morris. I professionally, I'm a video producer, former photojournalist. As a person, I grew up in South Louisiana, very connected with Cajun culture, and not long after I graduated high school, I decided that I wanted to try something else out. So I moved to California, went to college, and along the way, I worked in Topeka, Kansas for a little while, and then I found my way here to New Hampshire, where I've been for almost the last 20 years. I met my wife on a chairlift in Maine. So I'm officially a New Englander forever now. And that comes with access to some of the most beautiful parts of the Northeast. So
Absolutely.
where we live, depending on traffic, we're about anywhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours of Boston. And, there's rarely traffic going north. So we're probably at least an hour from, some decent fishing, some good hiking, some good skiing if you're using New England, a New England standard. So yeah, it's a great place to be if you like to be in the outdoors.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about a brief synopsis of the film you're working on.
So in January of 2023, my brother Max died from fentanyl poisoning. And he had struggled for a long time with addiction. It was no secret. He'd been to treatment. And he was clean for a while, and someone sold him some drugs that contained fentanyl without him knowing. And it killed him. He was my only brother. So it's been tough. It's been a hard it's been a hard couple of years learning how to live without my brother.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't have a brother, there's no way for you to know, but like it's like a phantom limb almost where like
Wow.
for me, he's my older brother. I've never lived a day until the day he died without him.
My
Um,
God. Yeah.
so so that day, my wife and I got on an airplane from Boston and flew down to New Orleans, and I found myself going into his bedroom, and I just found myself sitting on the floor, looking around, having a cry. I was pretty stoned myself, so um, it was kind of just a numb experience looking around, and I saw something that kind of caught my eye, and it was his fishing poles leaned up against the wall. I hadn't really been keeping up with fishing. Obviously, we grew up doing it in South Louisiana. It's kind of a rite of passage. Um, but something spoke out to me and said, "Hey, like, this is how you can maybe stay in touch with Max, your brother."
Wow.
Um, so I went home and I learned how to fly fish, and that led to me eventually getting clean and sober myself. Um, and it's been how I've managed the grief of losing my brother for almost the last 3 years, and it's completely changed my life.
Wow. That's so, there's so much like devastation and hope in that at the same time. How did nature kind of, you said you found the fly rods. And then I guess my first question would be you grew up fishing in Louisiana, but how else did nature kind of play a role in your early life?
I've always loved being outside. Always been. It was never very hard to convince me to go outside and play. Um, you know, it was just what I did. Ride bikes. There was a ditch down the street from our house that had fish in it that my buddies and I at like 10 years old would go down and we'd put corn on hooks and catch fish, and we would bring buckets full back to my house and put them in my mom's pond, and she would be that we were trying to put we were trying to put fish in her pond, um, and it wasn't very big. It was like the size of a bathtub, and pretty soon, like the next day, they were all dead, floating belly up, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Look, I got friends coming over. You can't be putting fish in my pond. They're just gonna be dead tomorrow." Um, so I was really lucky. I grew up in a really wonderful home. Both of my parents, they're still married. I mean, they're my biggest fans. They're encouraging. They lift me up. They tell me they're proud of me. And they sent us both away for summer camp when we were maybe in like middle school to North Carolina, and I really fell in love with nature in North Carolina. The
It's beautiful
Appalachian
there.
Mountains are a
Oh yeah.
spectacular place. Uh, did a
Yes, it
lot of
is.
did a lot of rock climbing, a lot of kayaking, whitewater kayaking. Um,
On the Ocoee River.
yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, just
I know that river.
fell in love with that kind of lifestyle. Totally foreign from what I grew up with. Um, so when it came time to move away, or to start life, I tried to pick a place that would give me access to those kinds of things, knowing that that was kind of my safe, refuge, respite, so to speak. Could always
Yeah. Do you
run to
have any like?
nature.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's so amazing. Do you have any experiences that you remember, like that stand out, like moments of awe from middle school or from your early years?
Yeah, I remember. Like, I think maybe the earliest one, maybe I was 10 or so. We were big duck hunters, also.
Okay.
So we would get up before the sun came up, and motor out into the marsh, and using a big Q-beam flashlight to see your way around, and your pirogue is flipped upside down out in the swamp, and somebody's got to go get it, and then you park the boat, and then you continue on your little flat bottom boat when it gets real shallow, and then you pull it up into the duck blind, and right around that time the sun's coming up over the horizon, and it's just so quiet. um I remember just these very clear sky days where the sun is just a little orange marble that came up over the edge of the earth. And I remember that being a very special experience, being there with, whether it was my dad or my brother, or maybe my mom and my brother. um, I kind of felt the presence of God in that moment, and I didn't really understand what that meant at that time, but it's something that I have continued to feel and experience um, from my adult life. Yeah, that moment when you can just kind of be in that exact moment, and find out that you're really just this big.
That's yes, yes, well put. That's exactly what moments of awe kind of do, right? You feel small, but not in an insignificant way. You realize the vastness of it all. You fly fish, right? It's how you and I met, and you found your brother's rods. You taught yourself to fly fish. You know, fly fishing doesn't take you to the ugliest places.
It's true.
It takes you to the most beautiful places we can imagine. And what do you know, when you're out there thinking about like moments of awe, can you kind of like, and presence, you were just speaking about being present, right? You know, how do you feel when you get out there in the water?
So I think, like, for people who are listening that don't know what it's like to be addicted to something, you probably do, but like, it's just not in the drug world, right? Like, people can't get up without having coffee. People can't, if I don't have a piece of chocolate before bed, I just die. Like, there's those people out there. Um, what I mean by addiction is like someone who uses something to run away from reality.
Hmm.
Um, and that's me, right? Like, for 20 years, I used booze and weed to run away from anxiety, depression, um, you know, like being bored. Um, when fly fishing came into my life, it was something that I could swap for that. It was a suitable substitute to getting stoned, um, or drinking a beer, or whatever. It was a thing that I could. It was a thing that would occupy me. Right? Like, they say idle hands are the devil's playground, right? That's totally true. And like, when you're an addict, or when you're an alcoholic, and you're just sitting around and you're bored, the first thing you want to do is get stoned or drink. So
Right, right.
when I started getting into fly fishing, I realized that if I am feeling that way, if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling depressed, it's not time to sit down and run away. It's time to get up and grab a fly rod and go outside. And there's that 10-minute gap between, when you decide that that's what you're going to do and when you hit the water. For me, I have a river just down the street. It's not
Wow.
a it's not a trout river, but there's bass and pickerel, and there's fish in there.
There's fish in there.
And once you get out there and once you start to fish, you can't be anything or anywhere but in that exact place at that exact moment,
Mm.
because that's how fishing works. You can't
Right.
just you can't just go out there and say, "Oh, I'm just gonna look at my phone," and like expect to catch fish. That's just not how it works. Especially with fly fishing. With fly fishing, you have to use your sense of vision, your sense of sound, your sense of your tactile senses, right? Like you're halfway through all of your senses at least by that point. And and for me, I lock in on things like that. So catching a fish, like that checks another box for an addict, right? Like that gives
Reward.
it gives you shot of dopamine, which is a
Yes.
drug, right? And you feel amazing, and you just feel like you're where you're supposed to be in that moment. And that was a lesson that I needed to learn, and I don't think it was a lesson that I was going to learn until my brother helped me learn it. My brother
Mm,
taught me that, right?
hmm.
He it wasn't, I don't know what it was. I won't say it was my brother's ghost that said, "Hey, over there, look at that thing," or if it was God, or if it was pure chance, or what. Um, but there was something spectacularly special that happened in that moment when I saw those fishing poles leaned up against the wall through tears.
Hmm.
And when I took that and I ran with it, it gave me a reason to be excited about life again.
I can see you there. It must have been so powerful. How do you think nature promotes healing for you in like a general way? How does nature kind of set the stage, right, for your healing process?
It's a really good question. I think sometimes you need to be alone with your thoughts. You need to be unstimulated. Um, and I think like we live in this world where we're constantly stimulated, maybe from our phone or from TV. And I'm
Hmm.
not, I'm completely guilty of this myself. Like I love to watch TV, man. I love it, especially when it's winter outside, and um, the options for doing things outside are tough. I get that
Especially by
fix.
you.
Yeah, I get that fix by watching a YouTube video of somebody going on an adventure, or having a life changing experience in nature or outside or whatever it might be. Um, so yeah, I think like it's a place that gives you the excuse to not be stimulated.
Mm.
And I think like in not being stimulated, you become completely stimulated in a different way, like, and it activates these other this other set of stimuli that otherwise you don't tap
That
because
you don't see.
yeah, you're occupied, like
Yeah.
the flickering lights of the magic TV, like it distracts you from um those very most primal feelings that you have when you have to sit in a place and um look around a little
Yeah,
bit.
and be present, you're describing like just this. I feel the same way when I go out fishing, when I go out on a hike, when I go out, it's like it when I think lays the groundwork, I'm thinking like it just kind of opens up. It makes more space, more room for me to have these other feelings and thoughts and emotions and realizations and whatever the case is. It gives you the opportunity to have the experiences that you wouldn't be open to if you're, locked in on your screen. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 It goes back to that moment of realizing how big you are in the universe, like how tiny you actually are.
Yeah.
Because I think like in society today, we think primarily about the things that we don't have,
Right.
and being out there um, without everything makes you realize that you don't need a whole lot to be happy.
Mm.
Like if you've got a pair of boots and a backpack and a water bottle and it's a reasonable day outside, you can go for a hike. You can explore. You can take in some really wonderful places and meet some wonderful people. You don't need a whole lot. And I think like it taught me being outside and being more adventurous and exposing myself to nature more often made me feel better about what I have and think less about what I don't.
I love
And
that.
to be grateful. I myself have more of everything than I could ever need. And when you start to realize that, you become happier.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
I think like the reason a lot of people feel really bummed out or depressed or anxious or I think it's because they think maybe like there's a lot of things that they need or want and that they don't have them. Um, but just shifting your mindset and realizing that you've got everything that you need, and finding gratitude in that. Nature taught me that.
Yeah. I love that. Finding gratitude. Absolutely. And I think about, you talk about like when you're young fishing, I think corn on a hook, that's how I caught my first fish, was in the Appalachian Mountains, in the campground I actually learned to walk in. And corn on a bamboo pole, a little 6, 8 inch rainbow trout, still my favorite fish, right? But one thing I love about fly fishing in particular is the connection it gives me to nature, because I'm not just sitting there with a worm on a hook, waiting for something to take it, right? You're connected to nature, you're active within it. And
You're
that's
out there flipping rocks over and looking underneath. You are reverting to childhood days.
yes,
You might
curiosity.
you might have white beards like us, but when you flip a rock over and you find some kind of rad bug, there's nothing like that. That
Yeah,
sets you loose. And like as soon as you realize that and you're like, "Oh, I got to fly like that in my box." And you go and get your box and you tie one on and then you drift it out there and maybe something grabs a hold of it. You're 6 steps into this adventure now
mm-hmm,
that you're invested in. And by the way, maybe it took 20 minutes to get to that point, and in that time, you didn't once think about an email, you didn't once think about a bill, you
that's
didn't
right.
once think about who's doing what, where, or why. You're just thinking about a neat ass rock that you found, a neat ass bug you found under a rock, and how you could tie one on that looked just like it and maybe catch a fish.
Right. That's amazing. That's the thing. That curiosity, that connection, that when I'm fishing, when I'm out there, it's like I pay so much attention to, not so much the cast because I'm not that great, but I when I get it out there, it's like every cast, I like to say, is like an opportunity, to practice hope, and then every drift is an opportunity to let go, and I in that I forget about the bills, the emails, the whatever it is, it's self-care, right? You really get to take care of yourself and give yourself a real genuine break, because there's no expectations out there. There's no performing for, the river. There's no, you're out there and you're part of something bigger. And like, to speak to what you were saying earlier about whatever it was that drew you to those rods on the wall, with your brother, when you were sitting there, that's, we're part of something, whatever that is, for whoever that is, right? And that's
Yep,
powerful. Yeah.
for better or worse.
For better or worse.
We're on this wild roller coaster ride that we didn't ask to be put on, and we really can't get off of. And what choice do we have but to learn how to enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any specific like rituals or things you like to do when you're fishing or when you're out in nature that kind of help you feel connected or help you, you know,
Yeah, I'm
heal?
usually on the lookout for a bald eagle.
Mm,
Um, and like like the week after Max died, I was in the Puget Sound area of upstate Washington. My best friend lives on an island out there near Bellingham, and I had this trip on the books, and it was literally like the next week. Like the timing could not have been worse or better at the same time.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
and so it was my first foray into this thing that I told myself and I told my brother that I would do. And I bought my first fly reel off of my best friend. It was an 8 weight reel, and I had bought a rod at Cabela's here, and I flew out there with the rod and I put that reel on it, and I put a salmon line on it, hoping that, maybe we could go find some steelhead. Um, and I found myself just casting into the Puget Sound, and this eagle flew over, and it was sunset, and it something spoke to me, and it was like it was like when you realize that they're there
Mm,
kind of
mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
Um, and I posted about it online. Um, and it was just this beautiful, simple moment where everything was quiet, and I think that had something to do with how quickly I fell in love with fishing, was because um, I knew I could have those experiences in nature and outside. Um, so yeah, when I put the boat in the water, regardless of where I am, or if I'm fishing a trout stream or something like that, I've almost always got my head on a swivel looking for a bald eagle, because it almost always spells a good day for me,
Okay.
regardless of how many fish I catch.
Exactly.
And there's
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I remember there was a one time that I was up in northern New Hampshire fishing the Upper Connecticut River. There's a trophy stretch up there, and I was with a friend, and friend knew this. He knew the story. He knew the connection that I had to the eagle. And I'm sat down on a rock, and I'm tying a fly on, and I see this massive shadow fly over me, and I hear him yelling about it, and I didn't even have to look up because I knew. And it's just, and it's that thing that I look for. There's another time that the eagle came into play a couple of years ago. We had that total eclipse.
Mhm.
We didn't get totality here, but to get away from the crowds and everything, I put the boat in the water, and my wife and I and the dog went out into the middle of nowhere. And I anchored the boat down, and we laid there, and we watched the sun come as close to totality as it possibly could for where we were. And in that post eclipse light, we were driving the boat back to the ramp, and there's the eagle. And that light is so spectacularly special because it happens so rarely, that for those two things to line up at that time, it just solidifies that for me, that like that maybe Max is an eagle now, and I can hear him. Like he was the loudest guy you'd
Yeah.
ever meet. Like, had this huge sense of energy, and I can just see him like, "Look, Mom, I'm an eagle." Like, it cracked me up
Oh,
thinking
man.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, Mom, I'm an eagle. Check me out. My mom laughs about that too. We talk about it all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good segue to you sent me a quote from the movie, which is called The Wake for lots of information will be in the show notes and all of that stuff, but I wanted to read this quote that you sent me because it's just so powerful, and it really it hit a chord with me. It says, when grief comes to your door for the first time, it's usually because of something tragic and unexpected. For me, grief has visited in the form of a gut punch on several occasions, but never as violently or for as long as it has since the loss of my only brother Max. Would that quote sum up the essence of what it feels like to be part of making that movie?
I think so. And to work on a film like this when it's so close and so raw still, and now it's been a couple of years, and it gets easier and easier to work on. But when I first started, it was maybe 6 months after he died, and I could work on it for maybe an hour at a time, and then I'd have to step away from it for a week or so, and kind of let it sink in, and kind
Hmm.
of go through the process of engaging with the reality of it. um and so the film, the vibe of the film for me has changed over time, because um like, it started out as a takedown piece on fentanyl, right? Like, I wanted to make that film that changed the world, and I thought maybe Max's death could help that. And then it changed again to, um, like his death gave me this newfound ability to um, find happiness. And now, it's really about saying goodbye. Um, we've scattered ashes in Louisiana and in Mexico. Um, we've done it with my mom. I've done it with my friends. Um, it has become, it's become the wake that we never had for him. We never had a funeral. It's not something that we feel like that he really would have been into. My whole life, all of our grandparents in their passing, our other loved ones who've passed, I've never seen my brother at a funeral. And when my mom started talking about it, I was like, that's obviously something that he didn't want to face or deal with. So let's just not. So this has been my ability. This has been the way that I've found that I can say goodbye to him. And um, it's little by little. It's in some really wonderful places that he connected with in a big way, places that I've connected with in a big way. Um, and I think like it's really important to tell stories like this because I'm not the only one that's gone through this. I mean, in the year 2023, the year that Max died, more than 73,000 people died from fentanyl poisoning. And think about that, right? Like you and I are in New England, like the Patriots are a big deal here in northern New England. Gillette Stadium holds 60,000 people. So like more people died in America than can be held in an entire stadium, professional sports stadium. And it continues every year since then. It's been 5-figure death rates. So I'm not the only one that has experienced tragic and extreme loss and grief from something so specific. And so I feel like this film now exists to help tell the stories of people who are left behind in the wake of the opioid crisis. And that's where I find myself and my family finds themselves. Um, and when it comes to grief and saying goodbye, there's an element of having to learn how to live again. And the gift of fishing is the thing that has helped me find that new ability to live again.
Wow.
And so this is a story that I it's very hard to work on,
Mm.
but it is one that I hope brings some peace to other people who have been through something similar, um, and gives them the ability to realize that um, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and but if you can find something and give that person's life a sense of legacy, it can be a very meaningful and very healing experience. And that's what this film's all about, is just that.
That's incredible. So powerful. There's so much there. I'm curious about how did you go from being in that terrible time in 2023, feeling everything you're feeling, to how long did it take and what was it like to get to the point where you realized nature was the tool, right? Fly fishing and then
I
nature
mean,
beyond.
um I'd say it happened pretty quickly. um and like it happened by accident almost. So I mentioned Max died in January. Sometime in March that same year, I had a shoot that I had to go to down in Philly. And in the nature of our business, a lot of times it's easier to just drive all your gear down to something like that and do your job than it is to fly and rent gear and the in and out, or like fly your gear down. Um, so myself and 3 members from my team we all drove down to Philadelphia. And before that, I had this feeling that I was needed back home. Um, there was a storage locker that my mom, who's in her 70s, was having a hard time cleaning out and getting rid of. So my best friend Matt, who um, sold me that first fly rod and had me at his house the week after Max died, he came out and we drove down to Louisiana. And the goal was to get to places where we could fish. um, because in the Northeast in wintertime, fishing's not a real hot, it's not a real
Right.
hot thing.
No.
So, we drove to Virginia and we were going to fish, um, there in, what's the name of the national park there?
Shenandoah.
Yeah. Um, there's that, there's that stream where they have big browns and
Oh, I forget the name of that.
yeah. Anyway, we were going to camp and fish the next morning and then get in the car and drive some more. And then we were going to stop outside of Birmingham, and there's a tailwater fishery. They stock with rainbows outside of Birmingham that I'd done some research on. And so we stopped there and, um, like all of that was really good. And then our van broke down in Birmingham. um, and the long and short of it is the mechanic that helped us fix the van had a litter of puppies with him, and I took a puppy with me. They were born 3 days after my brother died.
Boy.
Um, and then we got down to Louisiana. We cleaned that storage locker out, or at least part of it. And I had hired a guy to take us out fishing for redfish because it was Max's favorite. And I caught my first redfish on a fly. It was maybe my first fish on the fly. Um,
Wow.
and at the whole time we're out there, I can feel him in the breeze. I can hear the breeze and the reeds and the marsh grass and the sun on my face, and I'm just all of a sudden I have this ability to be present. And I think like that's what clicked for me, was that being present was a suitable escape from things being hard.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds like quite the trip and realization, right? And kind of putting two and two together there.
It's a lot of things happening by chance, and all of the stars aligning in weird
Right.
ways, and um, having no business standing on a casting deck of a skiff, with a guy with a black pole pushing me around the swamp, having no,
Uh-huh.
like, couldn't cast the fly 35 feet, like
Wow.
the only reason I caught the fish was because he literally pushed us into a schoolie, a group of schoolies, and like I could have grabbed one. It wasn't a skill by any means. It was just, but it was that moment that clicked for me that I was like, yeah, this is going to be something else. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that whatever it was supposed to.
I know you said I was really interested in your nature helping you reconnect with Max. How is that felt, and like what kind of, experiences do you have around that?
um, I don't know. There's a lot of them, but I think the thing that I have noticed most is that this gift that he gave me is now something that I am giving to other people.
Talk
Um,
more about that. Can you be more explicit? The gifts that he gave you?
I think fishing was a gift that Max gave me, and it wasn't. He wasn't a gift giver. This guy, all right. Like Max, Max had ADHD and severe dyslexia, and if you knew what day it was, like the date, like at any given time, I'd be surprised. Like he forgot Mother's Day and Father's Day and birthdays and Christmas. I don't think I ever really got a for real gift from my brother. He stole a lot from me, but I don't think he really ever gave me anything. And so, like, thinking back in hindsight and realizing that, like, okay, well, maybe all of these experiences that I've had since his passing, they have been gifts. Um, and I would say that, yeah, maybe I've given myself a lot of them, but the singular experiences within an experience are gifts. And I believe that those are gifts from my brother.
Absolutely.
Um, and so when I mean I'm giving other people gifts, I've gotten a friend into fly fishing, and his sister had died the same year as my brother. And whether or not that's a grief tool or a tool for escapism for him, I'm not really sure. But we're going to Puerto Rico next next week, and we're gonna go fish for bonefish and tarpon and permit.
Oh, there you go. Grand
And
slam.
and you know what? Like that's a gift for me to have a friend who is into the same thing as me, and maybe it fulfills him in a similar way. Um, and the same is true with sobriety, like I don't think I would have got sober if Max hadn't died. Sure. Right? Like I don't think that would have been a thing. Maybe at some point a therapist along the way would have been like, yo, like you're killing yourself. Um, but like through my sobriety, now other people around me are finding their sobriety. Um, and that's a gift to me, and that's a testament to my brother, right? Like
Absolutely.
that's a legacy that he didn't know that he was going to leave. So all of this is legacy, right? That he
Yeah,
didn't realize that he was going to leave, and it's been an absolute gift to me. And I think that's rubbing off on other people, and
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
not
I think
preaching it, I'm just living it, and I think people see that, like, okay, well, Grant seems to be doing better than he used to, and what's Grant doing that's different? Well, he's not doing the booze or the drugs, and he's fishing a lot. So maybe I'll give that a shot and see if that works for me.
I'm really taken by the idea of, to lose someone so close to, it's the loss of a connection, right? And then to be able to use fly fishing and sobriety, but within nature and as to reconnect with something. It's this ethereal circle that seems really, I don't know. It's really powerful.
Can't ignore it. You
No,
can't, and
no.
it's not coincidence. Like, because if it was coincidence, maybe it happens once, right? But like it happens over and over again. I mean, that's how I met you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I if all of these things that happened to me before I met you hadn't happened, we're not having this conversation,
that's right.
right? We, I don't find out what it means to me um, to see other people learn how to fish and get excited. I don't know that any of that happens without all of this 8-pound sack that happened before, right?
Right, right.
So yeah, man, I don't know. There's a lot there that, like, I think it'd be really easy to ignore, but if you just open your heart to it and say, dang, man, like some of
Yes.
this stuff is just outrageous and you can't make it up. It's a nonfiction book for real,
It's a nonfiction book with stuff you
You
can't
can't
make
make
up.
it up. Like it's so much better.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Yeah. Um, we were talking about the documentary and I mean, we've talked so much about it. Maybe this is a redundant question, but how has it helped you heal through the documentary? I know we spoke earlier about this was a couple of months ago, I think, but we were talking about how the documentary has turned from a piece like you were saying earlier about, stick it to fentanyl and really bringing it down to you really realizing the power that nature holds to heal. And how,
Yeah,
can you speak to that?
yeah. The pharmaceutical industry created fentanyl as a painkiller.
Mm-hmm.
God created nature as a painkiller,
Mm,
and I don't think we look at it like that. Our actions certainly don't suggest that we do, but there are some incredibly magical things that happen out there under the cover of tree that you'd never know or you wouldn't even believe right? Like,
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've been driving in Maine, for instance, and I look out on either side of the highway and think to myself, has a human foot ever touched that? There's got to be a square foot in there somewhere that no one has ever stood on.
Right.
And where can you go in this world that someone hasn't already been? What can you see that hasn't already been seen? What can you experience that hasn't already been experienced by someone else? That's nature, dude. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the only thing out there that can be completely new and completely surprising still. I'm reading a book. I just finished it last night, actually. Um, about two hikers that um, got stuck in a blizzard in Franconia Notch, which is here in New Hampshire. And it triggered this whole rescue, right? Blackhawks and search and rescue, 30 something people out there. And with the wind chill, it was close to 100 degrees below zero,
My
looking
God.
for these guys. Um, and all of these guys on search and rescue, they'd all been to this place before. But the day that they went out there for that search and rescue, it was a place that none of them recognized. And so, like, that's just a perfect example of you can go to a place in nature a million times and never see it the same way twice.
Love that.
But
Yes,
can you go?
absolutely.
You can't go to a museum and see it the same way twice, I guess. But like, you'd have to go to a museum very sparingly. Like, if you went every day, you'd see it the same all the time, right?
Right.
But not nature. That's like, what else changes itself? What else, like, shifts in its reality the way that nature does? It's constantly refreshing itself, and it's doing it for us.
Love that. Well, I part of what I talk about is that we are part of nature, right? It's not, there's no it and us. It's like we're one cohesive unit, if you will. And
Exactly.
yeah,
There's not a line out there that says this side nature.
no,
you
no,
know,
there's not.
tomorrow I could be super surprised and I could go out into my yard, and even though it's January, there could be a crocus coming up. Like, I've lived here for almost 15 years and I've seen this place in every light, at least I think I have, right?
Hmm.
But like, it doesn't stop you from being surprised. It doesn't stop being new. It doesn't stop transforming, or it just doesn't care. I think, like, we could take some notes from nature from time to time.
Please, absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. um, and it's, I was just thinking about that someone had said to me once that nature has the monopoly on perfection. And well, yes, I think that's true.
You can cut that part out.
It's imperfection is part of the perfection of nature, right? So like you're
Exactly.
saying, in the middle of the winter, like this flower will pop up, when it's not supposed to be there, but it's so perfect, even though it's not supposed to happen in that moment. It's meaningful, and those are some of the lessons that I get taught, myself being out. I mean, my wife and I, we love the snowdrop, which is like the first for us, the real sign of spring is coming, because you get the frozen ice on the ground and whatever, and then you see these little flowers pop through. I don't know, it's they're just always like, yay, here
It's
we go,
here. It's
it's
here.
here. Exactly. Well, I guess, what do you think? Like, if you had to round up and say, like, what is the importance of, like, the healing aspects of nature, and how, looking ahead, how are you using that, and what's coming up nature wise?
Man, nature-wise, I don't know. I've got this new thirst for experiencing places that I've never experienced, and getting off of the beaten path. I mean, I was just in Mexico a few weeks ago, and um, I've been to the desert many times, and I've seen cacti, and I've seen the place that it meets the ocean, and it's a spectacular place, but like I'd never really stepped off the beaten path and kind of gotten myself mixed in with it in the wild sense, right? Like you can drive through it, or you can get out of the car and step into it and experience it for what it is. And I mean, I was out taking pictures in the middle of the night of Cardona cacti, and I was out at first light to to look at it again in a different light. And I think like that's what I'm most excited about. Is it's one thing to get out there, and it's another thing to experience it from different perspectives, but even different perspectives at different times. Like in the desert, most days are the same. It's a blue sky, um, and it, depending on the time of the year, the temperature is pretty much the same. Um, but you look at it at a different time or from a different angle, and the light hits the cactus in a different way. And I think like that's something that I'm trying to work into my everyday life, is that tomorrow the light is going to hit the cactus in a different way,
A little different. Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit different. And like today might have been a hard day, but tomorrow is a new shot at it. Like you said, every time you cast a fly, what was it?
Every
Opportunity
cast
for
is an
hope.
opportunity. There's an old saying. I can never remember who says it in exact words, but it's every cast is an opportunity for hope, and every drift is an opportunity to let go. There's a famous saying. I'll try to look that up. But
No, I love that. And I think you can wordsmith it however you want, right? But
right.
the meaning is the same, you know. Give yourself a chance to heal. Give yourself some grace,
Hmm.
and don't be afraid to say today sucked, and say, okay,
Yes.
well, tomorrow is another shot at it, and tomorrow it gets better. Time heals, man. It really does. And I think like there's the element of time that heals, but there's also like there's an expectation that you'll heal yourself too, right? And I think that's where what you do comes into play more than anything else. Like if you want to heal yourself, then you have to work at it.
Right.
There's not a
Yeah.
pill for it. I mean, yeah,
There's
there's tons of pills for it, but
There are
like
pills for symptoms, but the work is internal, right? You have to really
I've got this
process that
great
stuff.
I've got this great one called Prozac that helps me out a ton, but
Well, what about with the film The Wake, right? Moving forward with that, what is that looking like? How close? What's up?
making films is hard and it's
Hmm.
expensive.
Yeah.
I am lucky in the sense that I have access to all of the tools that anyone could ever possibly dream of, that you know are used to make a film. And even still, it's a very expensive and very time-consuming proposition. I have invested quite a lot of money into this project myself. Um, it didn't start out as a project. It started out as a way for me to learn how to live. And that's not something that I'm going to ask somebody else to pay for, right? Like I went on vacation, I went fishing, right? But it's kind of gotten to the point now where all along the way we've filmed these really critical and key pieces of transformation of me as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
at some point you got to raise a little cash to put it over the top. Um, the end goal for this film is we're going to give it away. I don't want to make $1 off of this. I don't want to make a penny. It's something terrible that happened to me and to literally millions of other people, and it's not a thing to be monetized. And I want this film, when it's done, to give people hope, and serve as an example to people, um, who might be able to use it as maybe a roadmap or some encouragement to um, getting better, getting themselves better, getting happy again,
Right.
um, dealing with grief. There's so many different elements that have gone into all of this over the last couple of years that it's kind of crazy. I look back at my journal entries and I'm like, man, like there's just so much stuff that I've been through over the last 3 years that like I never thought I would. So I say that to say this. We're going to be launching a final run of crowdfunding. We just got a fiscal agent through the United Way who's going to help us make all of the donations that people make tax deductible.
Awesome.
This is a big deal. We've been planning on going live with the crowdfund now since October, but every time we get ready to hit publish on it, something else happens and kind of says, okay, well, let's just hang on for a second and see what happens, because we love to make this something that's mutually beneficial for the people who are working really hard on this project, and also for the people who are willing to give of themselves, that give money, we have items that people have been donating to us for crowdfunding purposes that are going to help us raise some money. And so I think by the middle of the year this year, we'll have all the money that we need raised, and we'll be able to finish up filming. We'll have a budget for post-production, and then we'll have some money set aside for the film to make its rounds at film festivals, and a pay-to-play run on maybe cable or something like that. And then once it's done, it's free. Anybody can use it. Anybody can look at it. Anybody can show it to a crowd. It's the people's.
I love that. Thank you, Grant.
Pleasure's mine. Like any chance that I have to shoot the shit with you for an hour, I'm glad to do it.
Right back
And
at you, man. Right back
I
at you.
hope that if there's people out there that are going through the things that I've been through, that they listen to this podcast, and maybe they can look in the mirror and say, hey man, like we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this, and everything's going to be okay. Like that's just the thing, is that sometimes it takes tomorrow.
Sometimes it takes tomorrow, and having inspiring stories and people like you around, nature out in our back door, in our backyard, to support us in that. It's all so powerful and important. So thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Nature of Mental Health. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, and share the show. It helps others find their way to this community. For more resources, visit riverstonementalhealth.com. Until next time, notice the small spaces where nature meets your day. Stay curious, and may you find resilience in every season.